Every sign has its partner, and the partner sign of Scorpio is Taurus. This is two sides of the same coin, essentially. So when we're talking about Scorpio, which we're going to go into today, and I'm Natha Perkins of Electra Astrology. This is my show, Astrology for Awakening, where I'm going through all of the facets of all of the sun signs. This is an astrology school. You can listen to all of these episodes. By the time I'm done, there's going to be about 70, which is really exciting. They're all on YouTube under the playlist Astrology for Awakening, and I'm also releasing them on the podcast Star Narratives. I like looking at astrology not just as zodiac signs and not just as a personality typing system, but rather as a whole framework of the psychological, spiritual, astrological version of you and who you are. So you can listen to these episodes and they tell you a lot about what you're dealing with on any given moment. So when we're looking at Scorpio, we always have to look at Taurus as well. And the Scorpio-Taurus axis is the one where we talk about money and finances and what we have and abundance and what we don't have and lack. So it's always an interesting talk. I'm going to go into it. These are edited talks from my podcast Star Narratives from 2024. So we're going to go into that in a minute. But I just want to say this is a really potent axis for all of us because we all want money. And generally, we feel like we don't have enough. And that is the conundrum right there. Scorpio, not enough. Scorpio, I am beholden to other people to give me what I want, whether it's love, intimacy, money, transformation, power, right? I don't have it unless you give it to me or unless I take it from you. And then Taurus is like, I want love, money, power, resources also, but I have to be responsible for creating it for myself. I don't want to wait for somebody to give it to me. I don't want to be beholden. And so with Taurus, we're looking at how do we generate that? How do we create our own abundance? How do we build up our own sense of self-worthiness so that we aren't always looking over there and saying, are you going to give me some? Are you going to love me? Are you going to share your money with me? Ideally, with Taurus, when we have what we need, we are willing and able to share it. Whereas with Scorpio, we don't want to have to give it away. We are holding it tight to our chest because we feel like there's not enough. So we're going to dive into that, but wow, what a potent archetype for all of us to look at as we're all dealing with our own relationship to abundance and lack, to savings and debt, to self-sufficiency and dependence. So let's get into it. And if you like my style and you want to book with me privately, you can find me on electraastrology.com.
Over the last few weeks, we have done the deep dive into the archetype of Scorpio, and we're not done yet. Scorpio is such a deep sign, and it has so much to offer us in terms of our own self-experience and what we have come here to explore, the unfortunate traumas that come our way that ultimately lead us into the depth of our own personal power. So if you've missed any of the previous Scorpio episodes, I encourage you to give them a listen. I feel that our Scorpio characteristics are some of the least understood and some of the most important to try to understand, because otherwise we're just walking around kind of traumatized and resentful and bitter, powerless, and nobody wants to be those things. So this week, we are going to look at Scorpio and Taurus. Every archetype has a sister, a counterpart that we rest into, that we lean into. And with Scorpio, we lean into Taurus. Scorpio is water, Taurus is earth. Scorpio is emotions, Taurus is logic. When we're in the deep and dark Scorpio waters, and we're having trouble navigating them because we're bumping up against our pain, our suffering, our addictions, our power struggles, what's the remedy? What are we supposed to do? I mean, a few things, and I've given you some ways to work with these deeper aspects as we've been going along, but we head on over to Taurus, and that is where we get into relationship with the physical body. We are looking at Taurus, and we are looking at the importance of tuning into the physical body when you are overcome with the stress of your Scorpio energies. Because, Taurus brings a unique kind of power to the table. It is with Taurus, if you remember, you can go back and listen to the Taurus episodes, but it is with Taurus that we are realizing that we can create whatever we want, that it's about dedicating ourselves to that which we want. So I use the analogy of the garden with Taurus. You don't plant your garden on April 1st and have a full-fledged garden of tomatoes on April 15th. But you plant your garden in April. By the time August rolls around, you have juicy, luscious fruits and vegetables in your garden. And how do you get there? You show up consistently. You gather what you need. You make sure that everything is functioning in the right way. And that is what we do with Taurus. We want something. We have a desire. We have a value. And we say, in order for me to get that, I will show up for myself. I will do the work that is required. I will prove that I am steady and that I am dependable. And then I realize how powerful I am. So with Scorpio, if we're fearful of losing our power and we feel that we've been hurt and we don't want to get hurt again, then we lean into our Taurus and we say, what do I need to support myself? And how can I step by step systematically bring what I need into the equation so that I feel supported, so that I land on my feet, so that I find that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And Taurus is ruled by Venus. And Venus is that energy that says, I'm good at greasing the wheels. I'm good at interacting with people. I'm good at figuring out what feels juicy and delightful and what I want and what I'm willing to go after, the work that I'm willing to put into it, because I like pleasure. I like it when things feel good. I like it when things taste good. And so regardless of any deficiencies that I'm feeling over in my Scorpio side, any dysfunctions, any fear that something bad is going to happen, I can always lean into the part of me that says, wait a minute. I know that good things exist, and I know that good things make me feel better. What if I set my burdens aside temporarily and I move into pleasure and I use my logic to understand how to access that pleasure? Now, there is a physical component, and I'll be really diving into this in our series episodes following this one. But the physical component of being in the body and the importance of being in the body to understand what messages the body is giving. And we know that when we're ignoring what our body says, a lot of times we end up getting sick. It's like if you aren't speaking your truth, then you wake up with a sore throat. Gee, I wonder why you have a sore throat. If you need to go to bed and you're out late and you keep yawning and you can't concentrate, gee, I wonder why you're yawning. Right? Our bodies have a very specific way of telling us what we need. And a lot of times when we're over in Scorpio, we get so caught up in the emotions of how we feel, the underlying fear that is triggering the emotions, that we come straight up and out of our body and we just go into, oh my God, I have to protect. I'm wringing my hands. I have to protect. I have to protect. Given the fact that most of us go into panic mode when we don't have an actual threat that is with us. A lot of our threats are perceived because of our mind, because of our emotions, because of our history. When we're not looking at an actual threat and we're still totally activated, then the solution is to come back into the physical body, take some deep breaths, connect in with your breath. And so we can do that right now for a second. Take a deep breath and come into your body, connect with your body. How are you holding yourself? Is there anything that needs to be adjusted? If you have any pain or discomfort, try breathing into that pain and discomfort and see whether you can use your breath to break up some of that density. So this is very simple, but it's very hard to remember to do. When we are overcome with fear and worst case scenario, as we tend to go into with our Scorpio archetype, bringing ourselves out of that very quickly by just tuning into our physical body. Even shaking your body, taking a sip of water, doing something to break that hold that your mind, that your fear, that your emotions have on you can be really powerful. And if you look at your addictions, because we know that addictions tend to fall under the umbrella of Scorpio and Pisces. What happens when you are indulging in one of your addictions? There is an unconsciousness that happens where we cut off parts of our experience simply because we feel that we can't deal. So think about it like this. If you have ever been somebody that has had too much alcohol to drink, you know that one of the things that can happen when you're out having a great time is that you might come home the next day and notice that you have bruises and you don't remember where they came from and you don't remember them happening. Probably you bumped yourself, you whacked yourself, and you didn't even feel it. That's an example of using something to numb your Scorpio pain that blocks you from your body. Now, think about if you are on your phone and you're scrolling, or you're in front of the TV and you're zoning out, and then you realize, I haven't been breathing. Do you ever have those moments where your body forces you to take a really deep breath? You're like, oh, and you realize you have been doing very shallow breathing. So it's like when we get into some of this Scorpio stuff, we lose complete connection with our body. And with Taurus, we understand that it is through the body that we are most empowered. So when you think about growing a garden, you can't just go unconscious, can't plant your seeds and then ignore your garden for the rest of the summer. You really have to be in there making sure that you're plucking the weeds, you're thinning the crops, you're watering, getting enough sunshine, etc. And it's when you're giving this conscious care to this garden that you are able to create exactly what you want. So when we're looking at the balancing act between our inner Scorpio and our inner Taurus, we are understanding that when we are struggling, when we have gone unconscious and we are feeling our pain, we are feeling victimized, we are wanting to blame somebody else for our pain, we are engaged in power play and manipulation, that we have generally become unconscious to our physical body. We've become unconscious to the present moment. Now I flip because it's not that Scorpio is always bad and Taurus is always good. Taurus can go into its own shadow and Scorpio can be its own support system. And I talk about that in the Taurus Scorpio episode. So you can look for that too if this is an archetype that you feel shows up really strongly for you. And don't forget that this is the financial axis in the zodiac, Taurus and Scorpio. With Scorpio, we feel that it's other people's money. It's our fear of not having enough. It's debt. It's our lack. It's where we're waiting for somebody to give us money or somebody is taking our money. And with Taurus, it's where we are building our money. We are building our resources. We are able to make our own money. So even just using that analogy, this is something to really look at in your own life is where do you feel lack? Where do you feel you're indebted? Where do you feel like you're waiting on somebody to give you something or you're always having to output and give to somebody else? That is Scorpio. That's Scorpio's shadow. Anytime that you're there in that bundle, you can move into Taurus, which says, I want to figure out how to pay off my debt. I want to figure out how to not need stuff from other people, especially if it's given with strings attached. I want to figure out how to not always be giving out to other people without getting anything in return. And again, this is where you show up, you become conscious, you tune into the messages of your body, you're very aware that when fear comes in, that you have power over it. And I'm telling you, the Scorpio stuff is really hard, but on the other side of the difficulty is like straight up distilled power. With Scorpio, we learn how to see the truth and we learn how to deepen into our awareness so that it doesn't matter whether there's fear in the system. We feel so strong and so secure And we have the knowledge that we can fix any problem that arises. We can pay off any debt we incur. We can grow our own resources because we can show up. We know how to use our logic. We know how to use our steadiness, our dedication. And I've talked over the last few episodes about cultivating this inner steadiness so that when something comes along that throws us off balance, we don't have to fully topple over and have to recover from the ground up. We wobble a little bit and then we find our core. We know that we can take our deep breaths, we can come into our physical body. We can look with curiosity at what this fear is triggering. What is the underlying stress here? And how can I deepen into my awareness of it so that I get some of the treasure that's hidden back in this deep, dark cave?
All right. Thanks for joining me, you guys. I hope that you learned something, and I will see you all soon.